Welcome, everyone, to Monday Morning Morons for November 20th, 2017. This week, let's start with something I know others have covered, but I just had to get my 2 cents in as well. Can my children be friends with white people? I'm not going to go point by point through this, but I'm sure you can already guess where he's going with this. Same old talking points the left has been using. He's just throwing his personal touch on it. Nothing new here. To summarize, he's teaching his kids racism because racism is bad. But only white people can be racist, and since his kids are black, hating white people is totally not the same thing because 150 plus years ago, some white people enslaved some black people, and therefore all white people are guilty and all black people were slaves, and even though they'd never experienced it, they should still be pissed off about something bad happening to people they never knew and carry that hatred forward to people they've yet to meet and paint all skin colors with a broad brush and make wild paranoid assumptions and so on and so forth because white people are bad. Like I said, there's nothing new here. It's just talking points straight out of the racism education pipeline that today we call college. But what do you suppose would happen if a white man wrote a similar article about how whites could not really trust blacks? You'd expect immediate outrage, wouldn't you? At the very least, that guy would lose his job, right? Well, as it turns out, we don't have to imagine at all, because that's exactly what happened. John Derbyshire, who used to work for the National Review, published a similar piece in the small Takis magazine in 2012. And of course, was almost immediately labeled a racist and fired. Instead of being branded and fired, though, this guy will be praised for how progressive he is. Double standards? Pfft. Of course not. He's black. To progressives, black means you should be treated differently because of your skin color. And that's completely different than these guys because they're privileging one race over another. Wait, no, that's the same thing. It's different because these racists generalize all people with the same skin color. No, that's the same too. It's different because, history. Yeah, that's the ticket. Can't refute history. So we're totally not the new KKK because some shit happened over a century ago and we're trying to make up for it by doing it again. Fuck. I really suck at this whole progressive mindfuck thing. Hard as I try, I always end up at a contradiction that I just can't justify. Obviously, I think too much. I need to go back to college again so they can fix that, I guess. Then maybe all this shit will make sense. Or at least I won't think too much about how it doesn't, anyway. Whatever. Let's move on. Class aims to rid students of racist, classist, heterosexist, ableist, privileged attitudes. Damn, that's a mouthful. Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing here. It's linked below as usual. I just wanted to point out 2 things. First, there's this. The class requires students purchase a book titled Foundations of Cultural Competency, written by the class's own professor, Stark. Why am I not surprised? Have you written a book that's just senseless tripe? Have you filled your book with bullshit and buzzwords? Are people not buying your book because you're marketing it in the nonfiction section instead of the fantasy category where it belongs? Fear not, dear author. We'll let you teach a college class and force students to buy it. The second part I wanted to point out is actually 2 things taken together. Point number 1, some types of white people who have yet to achieve white racial consciousness listed in the book include avoidant, dependent, and dissonant. White racial consciousness is defined as one's awareness of being white and what that implies in relation to those who do not share white group membership. Right, so the first type of white people are those who aren't aware of their white superiority. The other type of white people? One segment of white people who have achieved white racial consciousness is described in the book as a dominant type. They are characterized by a strong ethnocentric perspective, which justifies the dominance of racial ethnic minority peoples by the majority culture, with the view that white Americans and the majority culture in the U.S. as superior and of more value than minorities and their associated cultures, the book states. Right, so the second type of white people are those that have become racially aware of their supposed superiority, aka the racists, which she claims are the dominant white people. So the point of this class is what again? As the syllabus points out, students in the class will develop cultural competencies through activities, case studies, discussions, group projects, readings, and professional reflections to make students racially conscious. So let's recap real quick. White people are two things taken together. Point number one, some types of white people who have yet to achieve white racial consciousness listed in the book include avoidant, dependent, and dissonant. White racial consciousness is defined as one's awareness of being white and what that implies in relation to those who do not share white group membership. Right, so the first type of white people are those who aren't aware of their white superiority. The other type of white people? One segment of white people who have achieved white racial consciousness is described in the book as a dominant type. They are characterized by a strong ethnocentric perspective, which justifies the dominance of racial ethnic minority peoples by the majority culture, with the view that white Americans and the majority culture in the U.S. as superior and of more value than minorities and their associated cultures, the book states. Right, so the second type of white people are those that have become racially two things taken together. Point number one, some types of white people who have yet to achieve white racial consciousness listed in the book include avoidant, dependent, and dissonant. White racial consciousness is defined as one's awareness of being white and what that implies in relation to those who do not share white group membership. Right, so the first type of white people are those who aren't aware of their white superiority. The other type of white people? One segment of white people who have achieved white racial consciousness is described in the book as a dominant type. They are characterized by a strong ethnocentric perspective, which justifies the dominance of racial ethnic minority peoples by the majority culture, with the view that white Americans and the majority culture in the U.S. as superior and of more value than minorities and their associated cultures, the book states. Right, so the second type of white people are those that have become racially aware of their supposed superiority, aka the racists, which she claims are the dominant white people. So the point of this class is what again? As the syllabus points out, students in the class will develop cultural competencies through activities, case studies, discussions, group projects, readings, and professional reflections to make students racially conscious. So let's recap real quick. White people who are conscious of their supposed racial superiority are racist scum, and white people who are not racially conscious of that need to be made racially conscious of it. So, that little montage is just from the last 2 months, by the way. Hopewell School Superintendent Melody Hackney issued a statement Monday confirming the assignment was not a part of the current or approved curriculum and deeming the worksheet an inappropriate learning tool for middle school-aged children, WTVR-TV reported. This assignment was also not included or referenced in the teacher's weekly lessons plans that are reviewed and approved in advance of instruction. Hackney anyone, much less impressionable young kids. They are destroying the future right in front of our eyes, and we're federally funding it. Take a stand, folks. This is a fight we can't afford to lose. Unless you want a world where kitty fiddlers are hired to teach your kid. A world where age of consent is birth. A world where kids go to school to learn how to fuck their teachers. Look, I'm not a prude. When it comes to consenting adults having sex, do whatever gets you off, I don't care. But when it comes to abusing, molesting, fucking, and grooming kids, there's only one place for people like that. Okay, Bob, since we're already pissed off, might as well do the toxic masculinity story now. Oregon woman admits to poisoning daughter's drink, police say. Linked below so you can read the details if you like, but let's just cut to the chase. Pridgeon admittedly placed a quantity of prescribed drug into a beverage and gave it to her juvenile daughter, intending to cause her death because they were arguing and fighting, the statement said. Got into an argument with your daughter, so decided she had to die. That's masculinity for you. I mean, has to be, right? Femininity is caring and nurturing, right? You ever get the impression that the whole toxic masculinity thing is just teaching the exact stereotypes these feminists pretend they fight against? Bit of a contradiction, don't you think? How do you tear down stereotypes, by teaching and reinforcing those stereotypes. There I go again. Just can't seem to grasp this progressive shit without running headlong into that contradiction wall. Okay, so I'd like to leave you with a good laugh, but nothing in the news this week really jumped out as particularly funny. But given the seriously depressing stories this week, I think we should at least wrap up with a good story. Mom punishes son for school suspension by making him work free for others. A Louisiana mom found a creative way to punish her son for getting suspended from school. She put the boy to work for free for others while he was missing classes. Demetrius Payne quickly came up with a punishment for her son rather than letting him get a 3-day break from school. She posted his photo on Facebook last Friday, offering his services at odd jobs for free. My son has been suspended for 3 days from school for discipline, she wrote, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. He will do your lawn service, he will rake your yard, mow if you supply the mower, pick up trash, or wash your car for free, maximum 3 hours. If anyone has a rake they would like to donate, will be awesome. It's good to see that some people still have some values. She could have done what many others would have and just let him sit around for 3 days playing video games and watching television, but like she says, why reward him for his bad behavior? Good for you, Miss Payne. Okay, a quick programming note before we finish up here. Every year for the week of Thanksgiving, I take a week off. During this week, I more or less unplug from everything. I don't watch or read the news, I don't pay attention to social media, I don't even check my emails. So, there won't be a Monday Morning Morons for next week. We'll resume the following Monday. However, I've been thinking about putting together a little autobiographical series, a few pieces to properly introduce you all to Count Dibula, where I came from and how I ended up here, a sort of origins story, something a little more for entertainment than the usual stuff. Let me know if that's something you guys would like to see, and maybe I'll work on that this week. In the meantime, remember the mantra: women are victims, men are oppressors, and feminism is just about equality. I'll see you all next time.